Our US Open coverage is sponsored by AG1. AG1 is the daily foundational nutrition supplement that supports whole body health.
And as part of our US Open coverage, Joel and I are taking a little AG1 challenge of our own, and we'll be updating you on our AG1 journey and how it's improving our health and wellness. So Joel, we've got started. How are you finding it?
I'm not going to lie, I was a little bit nervous, I was a little bit skeptical at first, but I got my flask, put one scoop in, added water, shook it all about, and do you know what? It actually tastes pretty good.
Yeah, I was surprised because normally the healthier something is, the worse it tastes. But for me, what I like is I've got a cupboard of vitamins that it's been able to replace. So that's just one product I can take in the morning.
If a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase.
Go to drinkag1.com/tennisweekly. That's drinkag1.com/tennisweekly. Check it out.
Please take your seats quickly, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tennis Weekly with Joel, Kim and Chris. On today's US Open Round 1 catch-up, sponsored by AG1.
Coco Gauff survives the scare.
Holger Rune gets rumbled.
And Dominic Theim gets his first Grand Slam win in 2.5 years.
Kim, today is the 29th of August and we are here to catch up on round 1 of the US Open at Tennis Weekly HQ. Well, I say round 1. In true Tennis Weekly fashion, it's more like 75% of round 1 because in Britain, we are at the mercy of the time zone in New York City.
We are. So it's more like round 1.5 catch up at the moment, I think. But very excitingly, and quite last minute, we do have 1/3 of Tennis Weekly landing right about now at JFK Airport in New York.
It's all go. Yes, Chris is there. I think he's landed. And in true Tennis Weekly fashion, he's going, I believe, straight from the airport to Flushing Meadows and is going to get stuck in. I think he's already sourced out the luggage drop and then he'll be on his way in to get involved and get stuck in the tennis.
Yeah, so we look forward to hearing some updates from around the grounds later in the week from Chris once he is settled in and he's watched some tennis.
He can go to the night session, so we don't have to do the graveyard shift because he's out there. He can do the night sessions for us.
He can do it on actual time whilst we're supposed to be sleeping. But yeah, let's look back on what's happened on day 2 so far. We'll do day 1 later on in this episode, but day 2 so far, quite a few Brits in action, going quite well.
And actually, we've got our collector set picks as well.
Yeah, not forgetting collector set picks, which we'll reveal at the end of the show. Although, yeah, I feel like one of yours might already have fallen by the
I don't know why I was so eager to actually mention that, because as our listeners will hear later, I probably shouldn't have been so blasé given my picks that have already suffered one fatality, really.
Slam spoon of shame is coming your way.
Oh, don't say that, kid. I've definitely put myself out there as an early runner.
Don't worry. Some of my predictions I made, I think, in our preview episode have not gone very well since. But there has been good results for some today, including some Brits. We've had both Katie Boulter and Cameron Norrie winning in straight sets, which is great. Boulter was up against Diane Parry and Cam Norrie was up against Alexander Shevchenko. So both winnable matches and they came through them comfortably, which is great. That's exactly the sort of performances we want to see the Brits have in the early rounds. Andy Murray currently on court against Corentin Moutet. He's a set up and he's just got set point, Joel. So he could be well on his way.
I was a little bit surprised by that because he was a breakdown in the second set, and I thought this was going to be edging towards 1-set. But yeah, it's great to see Andy Murray. I was watching that bit of that earlier. It seems that he is fit, fighting fit. So yeah, he's not leaving any stone unturned. And the Brits at the moment, Kim, knock on wood, but they are on a roll, aren't they? Because we had Miyazaki yesterday win through her first ever Grand Slam win, and Katie Boulter. I mean, I think this was a very good result for her. I think she had beaten Diane Parry earlier this year in qualifying in Indian Wells, but the fact that Caroline Garcia is out, the draw has opened up a little bit nicely for her.
Well, that's our next news story of the day so far. Caroline Garcia, the Renaissance, the prophecy. It's currently none of that's happening because she's not had a great season, has she? She's out in the first round. Chinese qualifier Yafan Wang, 6-4, 6-1. Very comfortable scoreline for Wang, and really, really poor from Caroline Garcia. I mean, she's going to be hoping that the doubles kind of revives her a bit, because I think she's entered that, hasn't she, with Mladenovic, and I think maybe she needs that kind of revival again. And previously the doubles has given it to her, so she'll be hoping perhaps for that again, because she reached the semis here last year, so she's dropping a lot of points in the singles with this defeat.
It feels like she's dropped a lot of points this season. This season has just not gone the way she would have liked it to, given how strong the second half of last year's season was. So yeah, it's a bit dispiriting to see her, and the fact that her ranking is going to drop. She's been a mainstay really in the top 10 since last season, the second half of last season. But the fact she's going to drop out of that, she's going to be fighting to get into the WTA end of season finals, and to come here to lose in the first round to Wang, I think is very disappointing. Although I will say though, Wang is a very decent player. I was looking at her form and her record. I mean, she's gone 37-3 since May. So she's, riding on a wave of confidence from all those victories, and probably on, from Caroline Garcia's point of view, not the name you would have wanted to see drawn with going into round one, low on confidence, losing matches. Yes, she put a little bit of a run together, last week in Cleveland, but at these big events, at these slams, it's just not happening for her the way it was happening for her last season.
Yeah, and actually, when you look at Wang's statistics, that is such an impressive record, and she's definitely one to watch. And it won't be easy for Katie Boulter at all. I think she's got a real difficult matchup.
I mean, arguably
her.
Garcia. I could make the point, Kim, that Caroline Garcia was going in as the underdog into a round one match, given, I'd say, the lack of form that she's shown in contrast to Wang's performances this year.
Yeah, given recent form, I think that's an absolutely fair point. And perhaps Katie Boulter she knows what Caroline Garcia is like. She's played her, and they've had some really good matches like the one we saw in Coventry, but that's not going to be.
Why do you think this has happened to Caroline Garcia? We've almost kind of in this, I feel, second season syndrome of the fact that we saw the best of her last year, and now we're seeing the worst, and we're seeing the worst of her, I feel like, more or less, week in, week out. What do you think has gone on there in terms of, the performances we're seeing and the fact that she's just not turning up? And it's frustrating because we've seen so much better tennis from her.
I think she's a player that really, plays on a streak, on confidence levels. And when they're sort of not high and she's struggling, she just sort of mentally gets very down on herself, and she just doesn't have that kind of flow and that streak. So I think it's either like really good and going well, or it can be kind of the complete opposite, and there's maybe perhaps not really a happy middle ground. So we saw before, when she won the French Open doubles last year with Mladenovic, that kind of really bolstered her and gave her that kind of run of form and kind of just positivity that she needed. So maybe, that's why she has entered the doubles, and she's kind of looking for that again, because she knows that she's sort of, her career's kind of waned in the singles this year, unfortunately.
I will say, Kim, I think she tempted fate with her Instagram post, because I don't know if you saw this, and I don't know if our listeners saw this on social media. She posted that she had checked in to the Langham Hotel on 5th Avenue in New York City for 2 weeks. And as soon as I saw that, I had to get on the Tennis Weekly WhatsApp chat and be like, she has tempted fate there, given the form that she has shown over the last few months.
Well, I did see that. And
she's hoping for a deep run in the doubles.
But I mean, maybe she's just going to chill and enjoy New York. Yeah. If not, have a nice bit of a break, enjoy the city. If she does get out the tennis early, there's far worse places to be staying, I suppose. And if you have to sit out the rest of your booking, I suppose I can think of worse places. But one other player who will still need her hotel reservation, or at least for the foreseeable, is Ons Jabeur, because I guess Ons Jabeur, she's another sort of winner that's come through today, but she didn't have it easy. She was struggling, having some breathing difficulties against Camila Osorio, coming through 7-5, 7-6 to get into the second round. So yeah, really, really struggling with that, and really having to kind of pull out the win. And she's recently had her birthday. She's just turned 29. So this isn't really the style of win that she'd like to have gone for, but she has at least got the job done today, hasn't she, Joel?
Yeah, it wasn't the best tennis. It wasn't the best tennis from both of them. And I think actually if Osorio had played to a level I think we've seen from her in the past, she arguably could have come out with the upset, because Ons Jabeur was really... physically anyway, she was feeling it. I think she brought the doctor out on court, breathing difficulties, as you said. So I was very impressed, actually, the way she managed to come through, 2 tough sets. And in that second set as well, I think she was a breakdown. And to see her kind of come back and clinch it on that tie break just shows, I think, what a fighter she is, regardless of how she's feeling. She can really just go out there and gut it out. And I think, I hope she'll just kind of be motivated, I feel, by all of the previous, heartbreaking losses she's felt at Grand Slams. So I think that could weigh heavily on someone. And I'm hoping from Ons Jabeur she can use it in a positive way and not feel like she's got the complete kind of weight on her shoulders going forward.
Yeah, I agree. And, she was last year's finalist, so she'll be wanting to obviously maintain her kind of deep run here based on last year as well. So hopefully she'll be able to kind of get the better of those problems. Maybe it was hopefully just a once off. I mean, other top seeds that have come through today, we've had Marketa Vondrousova in action. First time playing at a slam since becoming a Grand Slam champion. She absolutely...
she is playing well.
Without any issues. 6-3, 6-love over Han. Out on court, I think, was it 17 she was scheduled, so wasn't getting the show court worthy of a Wimbledon champion.
That's what happens. Yet. As I said, you can become Wimbledon champion, you get put on court 17. That's the way it works.
Yeah, that's how they treat the Wimbledon champion. But yeah, she's on a roll of winning, 13 of her last 15 matches. So she's, her good form
she's going to be a handful.
Continues.
She is going to be a handful, I think. And Jessica Pegula as well, I think.
Yeah.
We did have her match against Camila Giorgi. I didn't necessarily have this on Upset Alert, but it certainly was a match that caught my eye on the draw sheet. But Pegula coming through that again, 6-2, 6-2, very, very comfortably. The fact that she only won 4 out of 15 break points and won so comfortably, I think it just shows, she didn't actually take all of her chances. So it could have been even more comfortable, really. But she, again, is going to be very motivated in terms of having a point to prove that she can belong with the very best. And this is the perfect start for her with a straight sets win against a competitor like Camila Giorgi. Yes,
I thought it was a very convincing, really good, comfortable scoreline, which is exactly the sort of thing that she will need if she's wanting to clinch her first slam. And a curiosity, Joel, I've noticed today, we've got, and I don't know what you think about this, we've got Wickmeyer up against Vera Zvonareva, who obviously back in the day is a finalist at a Grand Slam, and Wickmeyer herself, I think, was semi-finalist here. So a bit of a blast from the past with that match. But Yanina Wickmeyer, she withdrew from qualifying. She retired, but she's now back in on a lucky loser. Seemingly fine, perhaps going to win against Zvonareva. What do you make of that? Should she have been allowed to come back in if she'd retired in her qualifying match? Or, is that totally fine? What do you think?
No, I don't think it's acceptable that a player can retire so soon before a main draw of a Grand Slam starts and seemingly be fighting fit to come into the main draw and play, let alone, go on and win a match. And I don't necessarily think it should be happening. I wonder if there is like a rule that should be in place that if you withdraw in final qualifying round, you are not eligible to play in the main draw, because I don't think it's particularly fair. And, it's just very perplexing. I mean, I saw kind of a video of Wickmeyer, in that final qualifying round, she was in tears, she was upset around the fact that she had to withdraw. So to go from that kind of scene of seemingly in distress to this moment where you get Zvonareva and you're like, oh, okay, I've got a shot here. I'm gonna give it a go. To go into the second round, I don't think it's particularly on. I love Janina Wittmeyer. I mean, I watched her win, in Surbiton Trophy, but I'm not sure that this sort of route, once having lost, should be allowed from qualifying to main draw action.
Yeah, and actually she has won that match against Zvonareva. That result has just come in, so she'll be playing Keys in the second round. And I guess it's the whoever would have been the lucky loser will be wondering, oh, that could have been me. And maybe they need to look at a rule change perhaps. But let's just quickly look at what is still to come today. We'll do a little mini night session preview of what we haven't seen yet. Got Carlos Alcaraz against Dominic Koepfer and also Brits Miyazaki against Venus Williams on Arthur Ashe. So they've putting obviously home favourite Venus on the show course. Maybe it'll be the last time she plays there. Who knows?
And I mean, she was meant to play Paula Badosa, but Badosa pulled out. So to have Brits Miyazaki, I feel like that might feel like, well, it might feel like a little bit of a bonus, but actually maybe you would have wanted to face Badosa in first match back, probably very rusty. Maybe actually that was more of an ideal scenario versus someone like a Brits Miyazaki who is going to be fighting for absolutely every point and might revel in the feeling of perhaps having like 99% of Arthur Ashe seemingly against her.
Yeah, it will be quite one-sided, but a great experience for her. Night session at the US Open, probably one to tick off. Louis Armstrong Stadium has got Yannick Sinner against Yannick Hanfmann. Oh, two Yannicks. And we've got Sabalenka against Zanevska as well. So, both of them out on show courts as well.
Yeah, I think for Sinner, that could be a little bit of a tricky test. I mean, I've been following Hanfmann this season. He's having a good season. I think he got to he's been into the quarterfinals of a Masters Series event in or around the top 50. So I don't necessarily think that is like a given straight sets, very easy stroll for Sinner. I think he could be tested a little bit early, maybe even a little bit similar, I think, to kind of Casper Ruud yesterday against Emilio Nava. So I think, he's going to need to be on it, I think, for that match, because I think that could have a few moments where, questions will be asked of him from Hanfmann.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that's the easiest draw in the world.
I am loving, though, Kim, the fact that Jack Draper, who I thought was going to retire, he is now set up against Radu Albot. 6-1, one set, 28 minutes, move on to the second set. So I'm loving the fact that he did do a Whitmire and withdraw, which I was sort of worried about given what we saw in Winston-Salem, but maybe that was more precautionary than anything, it appears.
It might well have been, but let's hope Draper will continue the good day for the Brits, and as well as Andy Murray, because so far so good for the British players. Let's take a quick break now, but do join us in the second half where we'll be taking a look back on all the action from day one at Flushing Meadows, so do not go anywhere.
Our US Open coverage is sponsored by AG1. AG1 is the daily foundational nutrition supplement that supports whole body health.
If a comprehensive solution is what you need for your supplement routine, then try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase.
Go to drinkag1.com/tennis weekly. That's drinkag1.com/tennis weekly. Check it out.
Welcome back to the Tennis Weekly podcast, sponsored by AG1. And now we're going to look back at day one at the US Open. Monday, opening day of play. We had a few very straightforward victories for top seeds on the women's side. Iga Swiatek and Elena Rybakina sailing through very, very comfortably without any fuss at all, really. However, very recently sort of in form, just picked up her first 1,000 title Coco Gauff, she had a bit of a battle. She was a set down and had to kind of come back against Laura Siegemund to get into the second round. What did you make of Coco Gauff on the opening day, Joel? Given her recent form, do you think, were you expecting her to struggle in this match like she did?
Yeah, it was a little bit surprising, and it was surprising to me how much she let Siegemund affect her. And it was quite clear, I think, from the Germans' point of view, that she was going out to affect the rhythm of Coco Gauff. She's been in such a good groove at the moment, and I think Siegemund went out onto that court, didn't really care for Coco Gauff, didn't really care for the crowd either, and was like, I'm going to make you play tennis on my terms. And that's when I feel like we got all this controversy, particularly around the Siegemund serving action and the fact that it took, from Coco Gauff's point of view, so long, and the umpire wasn't really doing much about it. She was letting the shot clock run down to 0. From Gauff's point of view as well, she felt the umpire was taking a long time to announce the score, so giving even a few more precious seconds to Siegemund. And from my point of view, I was like a little bit surprising to see Gauff so angry and animated at the net. You normally see her as such a chilled and cool character on the court. So for me, seeing her go to the net and have a bit of a chinwag with the umpire about the situation, it showed me Coco Gauff I don't think I've necessarily seen before, but maybe it just shows just how competitive she is and how she's almost kind of turned a page, and she's just showing she really, really wants it, and she's gonna fight for everything, including things maybe she wouldn't have fought for before.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, it just shows that whatever is thrown against you, up against you in the first round of a Grand Slam, you've got to just deal with it. And yes, she did get quite uppity about it, but she's got to just look back and think, right, okay, what can I do differently next time? I got through it and I've survived.
It doesn't sound like she would do anything differently, because in the press conference afterwards, she said, if I could do it all over again, I would have said something earlier, maybe on a changeover. Other than that, I don't regret talking to the ref the way I did. I actually watched the video when I was taking an ice bath because I wanted to make sure before I came in here. Sometimes you have these emotions and you forget what you said. I'd still say everything I said in that moment again. So I feel like she's still very confident, and we've seen that, I think, over the years with Coco Gauff. But it shows that there's maybe a little bit of an edge to her that maybe we haven't seen really before.
Possibly so. I mean, you do need a bit of edge to be a Grand Slam champion, so...
I know. And I mean, what do you make of it from kind of Siegemund's point of view? Because she was kind of saying, like, I'm being made out as the bad person here, and I just wanted to have a good, clean match. Do you think it was fair in terms of her service action? Do you think the umpire was a little bit too lenient and could have got involved earlier than she did? And do you think, from that extent, the umpire arguably enabled the crowd to get on Siegemund's back because of the length and the allowance she made for her at times?
Yeah, I feel like the more you sort of accept early on, it doesn't set that sort of standard, and you've almost got to say something sooner. Yeah, it's almost like giving feedback. It's better to do it straight away when you notice things. If you let it build up and then sort of come in with the message, it's not quite as effective. So I think that she might be living and learning from that moment.
It was also that, but it was also the fact that Coco Gauff was angry also about the fact that Siegemund wasn't playing to the server, and that was the thing that really kind of upset Coco. And if I'm a player who might be playing Gauff, later on in the competition, I would maybe look at the way that Siegemund, yes, she lost the match, but she got under the collar of Coco Gauff, and it visibly upset her in a way that she went and did something about it, i.e. go to the net and talk to the umpire. And in the end, it didn't distract her, and she was able to get it done in 3 sets. But maybe there's a few tactics there that could be learnt from players who could come up against Coco Gauff in terms of, well, how can I derail a player who's been playing so well over the last few months?
Well, exactly. But that could be a strategy for others. I mean, let's look at some of the other results from yesterday. Another top seed who did struggle, but perhaps it wasn't so much of a surprise because she hasn't been in very good form at all, is Maria Sakkari. You know, she's been in the top 8 in the seedings at the last 8 majors. However, she hasn't won a match at a Grand Slam since the Australian Open this year. So perhaps not surprising that she has lost in the first round to Rebecca Masarova of Spain, who is currently the world number 71. This was 6-4, 6-4, so quite straightforward. Masarova's, I think, her first top 10 victory over a player as well. What do you think has gone wrong for Sakkari? I mean, this is a very sort of standard loss. She really needs to sort of go away and regroup, I think.
When we talk about Coco Gauff being distracted by Laura Siegemund's serve, it sounds like Maria Sakkari was distracted by a weed smell around the court, which she wanted to highlight to the umpire. It was really quite. It's one of those where you would never get that at Wimbledon, but obviously New York's slightly different. But yeah, I think in terms of the tennis, I think Maria Sakkari, it's disappointing in terms of like Grand Slams. She's just not been at the races. 3 round 1 losses in a row. And, the fact that, in a press conference afterwards, she was tearful. She was talking about the fact that should she take a break from the game. And I do think it's still very much mental. She's such a physical athlete. I think that's, one of her greatest strengths. But I think there's a lot to be said for her mental game, and we've spoken about that in big matchups, and the fact that she very often struggles, to reach finals, but I think goes deeper than that. And I think 6 months ago maybe we would have said Sakkari is on the road to stagnating, but I almost kind of feel like you look at her Grand Slam results in the last 3. You're not saying she's stagnating. I feel like you're saying she's reversing, she's regressing back, to a player into her shell, really, and it's not great because we've seen again, like Caroline Garcia, it's almost like she's stuck in this rut now, and we want to see her get out of this rut, but it doesn't seem like it's on the horizon at all.
Yeah, exactly. And I think she just needs to go away and take a bit of a break, which is what she said. She said she's her mind is not clear.
Do you think that's the best plan of action?
If I was her, I would probably have a bit of time off. I imagine financially she could probably afford to do that. And something clearly isn't working. So it's either change it up, got to do something different and maybe break with your routine, because quite clearly, she's not in the right headspace. Something's not quite slotting into place. So I would, if I was her, I would take myself off. Nice, I want to say Greek island. She might not want to go to Greek island, seeing she's from there. But, nice holiday and take your mind off tennis for a few weeks and come back refreshed.
Yeah, I mean, she was quoted as saying, maybe I need to take a break. I am suffering on the court, but I can't make a decision right now. My mind isn't clear and it's difficult. I'm constantly trying to improve. Maybe I need more time to reach where I want to be. I truly feel that I'm making a great effort, especially in the psychological aspect. And I find this is what's so, I think, complex about like the mental game of tennis, is that it's not just like, bring a sports psychologist on board and everything is right as rain. And, you look at Iga Swiatek and it worked for her, it's going to work for me. And, with these struggles with Sakkari, they feel just so deep rooted that it's not like a quick fix, is it? From a psychologist going to come in, identify the problem, and let's tackle it. It feels like it's still there from like a year ago.
Yeah, exactly. So she's gonna have to change something up. Let's hope in a year's time we'll be talking about Sakkari back to her making her semi-finals, because we used to say how frustrating it was that she couldn't get any further. But she'd much rather be getting to the semi-finals than losing in the first round of Grand Slams. I'm sure of that.
She's so much better than that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, let's look at some of the other stories from the women's draw from yesterday, because, I mean, we did mention this slightly at the start of the show. Another British player, but one that maybe a lot of people listening today won't have heard of, and that's British qualifier Lily Miyazaki, reaching the second round of the US Open. Her first time playing, in the main draw of a slam, at the US Open. She's never previously qualified for one. So she's made her way through qualifying and got her first win over Margarita Betova of Russia, 6-3, 6-3. She faces Belinda Bencic next, which I think is quite a nice reward for winning her first.
That's a nice reward.
slam.
I think that's a welcome to Grand Slam tennis type match.
Welcome to reality.
Welcome to reality. Yes, I think this is. If I was looking at the draw sheet and I saw Betova in the first round. Betova, for our listeners, by the way, is Gasparian, who married and is now Betova. She has had dreadful form of late. I don't think she's won a match this year. I was reading, she was 1-0, lost 10 in her last 10 matches. So to see that on the draw sheet, for Miyazaki, this is your moment. There's not going to be a better opportunity as a qualifier as well to make the second round. And I watched the match, and it was a great performance from Miyazaki. I was impressed with how she handled the occasion. It's never easy, I feel like, in these situations, and the fact that she went out there, made the most of it. I loved how she handled the second set. I think it was 2-2, love 40 on her serve, and the way she handled that moment. She didn't let it get to her. It was mightily impressive. But I still couldn't, Kim, I still just had in the back of my mind of, if she gets to Belinda Bencic in the second round, there is going to be a big step up in ability, I think, from Betova to Bencic. I mean, Bencic been to a semi-finals at the US Open in 2019, not that long ago.
Oh, absolutely. She's a seasoned pro at the Grand Slam level, albeit, she hasn't got to a final. But I just feel like if you're going to go into a nice, Grand Slam round 2, in a way, it's nice to have a seeded player. I mean, obviously, you'd rather have a more winnable match, but, you are rewarded with playing a top player you wouldn't maybe normally play. And
she has, I think, now kind of surpassed all expectations. I was thinking earlier about, the fact that British qualifier come through the 3 rounds of qualifying into the main draw, relatively unheard of. Some similarities there, Kim, with Emma Raducanu, but I do think this to me is probably where the road ends, maybe for Miyazaki in round 2. But she can be so happy, I think, with her performances, how she's gone above her expectation, and how she can push her ranking up, because provisionally now I think she's just outside the top 150 with this prize money as well. It's really going to help her, I think, just kind of support her travels, going from tournament to tournament. And I hope these experiences, I think, show her that she's been playing on the ITF circuit for a few seasons now. And maybe after this, you'll have the confidence and the belief to be like, well, right, I'm on the ITF circuit, I'm doing well here. But the fact that I can be in a Grand Slam main draw, I should be pushing up to arguably maybe get towards around 100, top 100 in the world. And, start to enter into, WTA maybe 250, WTA 125 qualifying draws and make it that way, because, it's so exciting, I think, with Boulter, Jodie Burrage as well, Harriet Dart, Katie Swan. There's a real kind of cohort, I think, of GB players in this area, and I just think adding yourself into the mix here, it's really exciting, and it can propel you, I think, to areas that she may previously have not thought possible.
Yeah, I mean, Jodie Burrage and Miyazaki actually share the same coach, so obviously they know each other well.
Miyazaki beat Burrage in Surbiton. I watched a bit of that, and Burrage was there cheering on Miyazaki in New York, which was, I think, a really nice touch. And they are friends off the court, so it was nice to see, and it's great to see her into the second round. I hope she gets a good court allocation, and there are some British fans there, because I think she's earned it, and now I think this is her moment to kind of show, all right, let's see what you got now. You beat Betova. She's not been in great form this season. Now you're facing Bencic. We're going to see what you're made of.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, just It must be funny if you are the same, the shared coach when they do play each other. Who do you support? It must be a bit awkward, a bit like the Tony Nadal thing.
Flip a coin. Yes,
Yeah.
sit right down the middle of the net post.
Yeah. Let's have a look at some of the men's action so far this tournament, because we had, I think, what is a really nice news story from the first day of play. And that was
Can't believe it, Kim. I can't believe it.
What, Dominic Theim getting his first win at a slam since 2021?
Yeah. Against
In
Alexander
straight sets.
Bublik as well. Yeah.
Straight sets. I know. 6-3, 6-2, 6-4. It was so much easier than I envisaged it would be should he get the win. I had hopes that he would. I thought he could maybe
He
pull
hadn't
it
even
off.
played on hard courts. I think he played in Vienna, played on the clay. In Kitzbühel on the clay. And we've not really seen him on the hard. So for him to come back and do this, yes, he's had previous at the US Open. I mean, he's a Grand Slam champion here. But yeah, it's just still, regardless of that, it just felt like a big seismic shock to do what he did in straight sets.
Well, we had, visions of his sort of form returning, I think, at Wimbledon against Tsitsipas in that opener. And I'm just pleased that he was able to get the win here. So, yeah, I feel like if he can stay under the radar and just, take it a match at a time and just see where he's going to go, with this. I mean, I think with lower expectations and just focusing on his tennis, and he said it's a really special victory because of all the memories he's had here. So I'm feeling quite positive about Team based on what we've seen.
I will say though, there was one sour moment, in that match, because it looked like on TV it caught Alexander Bublik saying, "I'm expletive, sick of getting all these disabled people back in their career." And this, I can't verify that word for word, but it sounded like what he said on court. And I was singing the praise of Bublik being a more mature competitor this year, and to hear him say something like that on the court is sickening. And if that can be proven, I think he should get fined for that, I think.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's absolutely horrendous thing to say, if that is what indeed he did say. And that's just the very, very unsavoury and just, ridiculous. So but we'll have to see if anything comes of that. I mean, Bublik is not the only seed that's out on the men's side from yesterday. We've had Holger Rune departing in the first round to Roberto Caballes Baena, who is a very consistent, wily Spaniard who you don't really want to come across.
We've moved on from PCB, Kim. It's all about the RCB.
It's RCB. And Rune wasn't very happy about a lot of things, was he? A, he lost. B, he was moaning about a noisy fan. And C, he was annoyed at having to play on court 5 rather than a bigger court.
He was not happy, was it?
Generally not a happy bunny.
This is the beauty. To me, this is the beauty as a fan of the US Open, is that I genuinely feel like the organisers, they do not care in relation to your name or seeding. They've got so many big courts, not just Arthur Ashe and Louis Armstrong. They've got magnificent stadia on grounds pass, and they need to fill them with names. And I think as a fan, for me, that's the beauty, that you get to see some of these players, like the 4th seed, on court 5. To me, that adds kind of a specialness of going to New York City to see these players on these unfamiliar courts in these unfamiliar territories. I totally understand from a player point of view. You're like, well, I'm slaving away. I've got my ranking this high. And I guess from his point of view, he feels like he's earned a bit more respect than arguably a court 5 shows.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree. He's the 4th seed, but it's a stacked day, isn't it? The opening day of a Grand Slam, and you've got your home fans that you want to. Yeah, you've got American players who you want to, have the home fans also watching on the show court. So, he's not winning fans, I think, when he comes out with sort of those sorts of comments. However, I had him going quite deep in my predictions in the draw, so I'm not doing very well with that. I also had Seb Korda going quite deep in my predictions. He's also out. What was I thinking, Joel, with thinking Korda was going to go deep?
To be fair, I give you that, because like Marton Fucsovics, he's just like perennial tough Grand Slam competitor, and it went down to a final set, very, very tight. And I mean, I give you that, but yeah, I was maybe a little bit more surprised by Rune. I don't know what it is. I don't know, what it is with his team potentially, but it feels like, he's not won. He didn't win a match in the North American hardcourt swing. He went out in round 1 in Toronto. He went out in round 1 in Cincinnati, and now he's gone out in round 1 in New York. It feels like to me like he's playing hurt, and I don't know whether that's a suggestion of his inexperience or his immaturity, or he just loves the game and wants to play. But I don't know whether there needs to be a step back taken either by him or his team or whoever it is to be like, well, hang on, something's not right here. We've seen you play so much better tennis. 3 losses on the bounce. Maybe there needs to be a bit more time to heal, and there was a little bit of a rush back to make sure that he could play 2 Masters in 2 weeks back to back. And I think, looking in hindsight, maybe that wasn't the best option, and maybe either you do one of them or maybe you don't do either of them, and make sure you're just 100% ready for best of 5 set tennis at a Grand Slam when you are the 4th seed. You want to make the most of it. And from this experience, he's going out in round 1.
Yeah, pushing yourself when you're not really ready is never going to be a good recipe for long-term success. So it does seem that that might be something that's going along. But yeah, it was a tough opener, to be fair. And we could have also had Casper Ruud potentially having difficulty, but he did come through 4 sets against Emilio Nava. Could have been
I enjoyed
banana
that
skin.
match. I loved that. It was Nava is a very good competitor. Again, as you said, like I love seeing like these American players, collegiate players. A pathway. I feel like it brings players to the tour. Cameron Norrie's a fine example of that from the British point of view. But you always kind of feel like they sort of bring in players who kind of make up the numbers. They're not necessarily going to be like a top 5 player, for example, but they certainly could be like a top 20, maybe even a top 10 player. And, I think Nava just kind of showcased all his skills, and he really made Casper Ruud finalist last year. Casper Ruud worked for it. And it was a great match, played in a great spirit. And that tiebreak at the end, I was wondering, is this going to go to a 5th? Could Nava maybe, complete the comeback? But Ruud did very well, I think, to stop that in 4.
Yes, I agree. And Djokovic also in action, very comfortable against Alexandre Muller, 6-love, 6-2, 6-3. So Djokovic is now back to world number 1 because he's won a match at the US Open, which is all he needed to do to secure that.
I mean, we don't need to talk about this match because we didn't really learn anything from it. I was going to say, actually, the fact that Holger Rune has gone out, I mean, his draw has got even easier, if that was even possible. But I wanted to ask, I feel like we see this all the time. Alexandre Muller was like 6-love, 2-love down. He won a game. Oh my God, he won a game. And did he celebrate it? He was just sort of appeasing himself to the Arthur Ashe Stadium in the night match. And I was just like, and whenever I see these types of moments, I'm always like, is that a little bit embarrassing? You're a professional player to get one game and then celebrate it like you've won your maiden Grand Slam title. I don't know. To me, I have a little bit of a like, come on, you can do better than that.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Or is that just a sign of how good Novak Djokovic is playing?
Probably that, to be honest with you. And he was in supreme form. His draws really opened up even more, like you said. And I don't see any impediments at the moment to Djokovic strolling into the final. But yeah, it's... Would you do the same?
Would you do the same? You're against Novak Djokovic. You've lost 8 games in a row. You win a game. What do you do? You're just going to go to the net and you're just like, yeah, fine. I'd be like, monkey off the back here. Not going to get double bageled or even triple bageled maybe. Or do you kind of just full on revel in it?
I think as a person in the crowd, you want the person to like big it up because you need some energy into the match. Let's face it. Otherwise, it's just one-way traffic. But yeah, poor Alexandre Muller. It was very one-sided. And another one-sided match, Joel, was Stefanos Tsitsipas against Milos Raonic.
How was this so one-sided? I don't understand. I can't have been the only one. I cannot have been the only one. looking at the draw when it came out being, this is big banana skin territory all over it. And well, as I said in my preview pod, I could have seen Milos Raonic come out with a win there.
Well, yeah, at least it should have been maybe a closer match, but Tsitsipas got the job done. Straight sets, very comfortable. Raonic, to be fair, he's still kind of eking his way back in. Very out of practice at the slam level.
He only served. Tsitsipas played very well actually. He only had Mark Philippoussis in his corner, but I think Raonic only served 8 aces across that match. I think it just shows how well Tsitsipas, particularly on the Raonic serve, was performing, and maybe I need to give him more credit because that was not a nice draw. He got, and he dealt with it beautifully.
He did, yeah, and we have seen this from Tsitsipas before. I think he has some tough opening rounds at slams, and we sort of put him on the is he going to make
Murray
it?
At Wimbledon.
Yeah, Murray at Wimbledon. You guys all thought that was going to be Murray's for the taking, but Tsitsipas came through. I mean, he's got Dominic Stricker next, who I do believe Tsitsipas will come through that as well. But he doesn't have a great record here. He hasn't ever reached the second week, to be fair, Tsitsipas. So I can see why, this is by far his worst slam still.
Stricker is again, Stricker came through Alexei Popyrin, who again in my preview was like, oh, that could be tough. But I watched Stricker at Wimbledon qualifying. He is a big ball basher from the back of the court, just wants to hit winners. With his weight of shot. So I think Tsitsipas is going to be ready for that. It was interesting actually. I just before we kind of look at the day 3 and all the matches there, Tsitsipas was talking about his single-handed backhand and how he modelled that on Roger Federer's, and he wants his backhand to basically be the successor to Roger Federer's single-handed backhand, and the fact that there's still an area in the modern game for a single-handed backhand. But yeah, I was kind of curious about that because obviously a lot of people talk about his single-handed backhand as one of his greatest weaknesses, and arguably, one of the reasons stopping him become a Grand Slam champion. But it was interesting to hear him talk about, his background with that shot and where that has come from.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's completely correct, and it was quite interesting to hear him say that. But I think, with Tsitsipas, I envisage him. I think I've got him in my quarterfinals, maybe semi-finals. I can't remember now, but I envisage that he will come through. I think he might be on for his best Flushing Meadows yet.
Yeah, I can see it now. I can believe it now that he's got. I can see it now, but I couldn't see it before.
Which nicely brings us on to our collector set predictions, because let's reveal who we've gone for. Chris will reveal his when he's back on the pod. He has done them. Don't worry, listeners. He's not cheating the system. He's definitely done them. That he's submitted them. But Joel, do you want to talk through your collector set predictions? Because we've got Alcaraz, Tsitsipas, and Tommy Paul for the men. So what have you gone for those?
I've got Alcaraz making the final. Tsitsipas. Well, actually, I'll wait for Tsitsipas. Tommy Paul, I've got quarterfinals, and I put Stefanos Tsitsipas round 1. I went too big too early, Kim. I thought he was going to get out to Milos Raonic, so I'm already a man down.
Oh yes. Well, I've gone for those guys. I've gone Tsitsipas quarterfinal. There we go.
Okay. Yeah.
Tommy Paul round 3, Alcaraz final. So. Sort of in agreement. I'm not so confident on Tommy Paul.
What about Vondrousova, Mukova, Wozniacki? Where are you going there?
Vondrousova quarterfinal. Mukova, I've gone bold, semi-final.
You love going bold on Mukova in collector set.
And Wozniacki round 2. I know she won today in straight sets, but she's playing Kvitova round 2. But I don't know if she's, will she get the job done against Petra Kvitova? Not sure.
We'll talk
yet.
about that in a sec because that has been put on the night session on Arthur Ashe, which I'm absolutely loving because that is an old school matchup. Former Grand Slam champions, both of them, of course. To see that as the night match on Arthur Ashe, I think that's going to be great. I have got Vondrousova quarterfinals, Mukova quarterfinals, and also Wozniacki round 2. I'm sort of in agreement. I think Wozniacki Kvitova. I think Kvitova will be a step too far for Wozniacki. But as I said, that is going to be one of the night matches tomorrow. Francis Tiafoe is also on Arthur Ashe. He's going to be kicking off that night session against Sebastian Offner. And then, we've also got Djokovic back. He's going to have Morales. Coco Gauff versus Mira Andreeva. That is an interesting one. They played each other at the French Open. Andreeva took the first set. Do you see any problems again for Coco Gauff in that matchup?
I think it could be a 3-setter, but I do think Coco Gauff will come through. I think Andreeva, she dropped a set in her opener, and although I really rate her as, a future prospect, I don't think she'll have quite enough just yet. I think Coco Gauff will have enough for that one. And
we've also got Iga Swiatek versus Daria Saville, Elise Mertens, Danielle Collins. We've got, what else have we got? Mukova, Magdalena Frech. And Jen Brady versus Magdalena. I think, if we're all serious about Jen Brady, Magdalena, 24th seed, GOATnet. Can we still call her GOATnet?
I think I love the sound of it, so let's say we can, yeah.
But if we're all serious about Jen Brady, that's a match she's going to need to turn up for, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, because that's going to be a tricky one. But yeah, I think there's some great matches in store for us, and I think that Andreeva Gauff one is probably the one I'm most looking forward to. There's Rybakina against Tomljanovic, which, Tomljanovic is back. She had a really great US Open last year. Obviously, Rybakina seems to be in good form, but I think that's quite an interesting matchup as well.
Just on Rybakina as well, I think similar to Tsitsipas Raonic, I thought Kostuk could have posed more of a threat than she did against Rybakina in round one, given the amount that Rybakina's put her body through over the last few weeks across Canada and Cincinnati. I thought there could have been a tougher test there, but again, maybe that just shows how good Rybakina is playing at the moment, and we should all be taking her very, very seriously.
Yeah, I think, she obviously did what she needed to at the time for her, her physical fitness. And that was the right decision to withdraw after she played in Canada. And, you've got to focus on the Grand Slam because that's where you want to get the results, above all the other tournaments. So hopefully, we won't see a repeat of, I think, was it the French Open? She had that illness, had to withdraw, and she was in good shape beforehand. So hopefully she's fit enough to go deep.
Well, what we'll do is we're going to just write down all these matches, send them to Chris, and Chris can go scout them in person for us. And listeners, if you've got any other matches you want Chris to go to, let us know. But we're going to be ending our round one, round by round catch up of the US Open with Tennis Weekly here. Listeners, I hope you've enjoyed our latest episode of the Tennis Weekly podcast. Remember to subscribe to us to stay up to date on all the action to come from Flushing Meadows at the US Open. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all major podcasting platforms out there. And if you like what you're hearing, then make sure to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
You can also follow us on social media or email the show. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Tennis Weekly Pod. You can purchase Tennis Weekly merchandise at etsy.com/shop/Tennis Weekly Podcast, or email us on tennisweeklypod@gmail.com. And you can also check out our website, tennisweekly.co.uk.
And we will be back on Thursday at Tennis Weekly HQ for our round 2 US Open catch-up, sponsored by AG1. So I hope you can join us for that. But in the meantime, it's goodbye from Kim.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. We'll see you again soon.